Like, you know, I had a lot more sleepless nights being an entrepreneur than I did working at W2, and I've had a lot more demand put on me, but that's exactly what I signed up for.
What's up, guys? Today we have a special guest, Wesley Pittman. Wesley is a real estate investor out of Reno, Nevada. He owns rentals, flips houses, and in the last few years, he's made over $1 million wholesaling houses. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I mean, we've been like friends for a short while. We were both in the All-Star program with Ryan Pineda, and just kind of seeing you as a person, I really like you're a genuine guy. You've got like a family, you've got kids. You're just a good dude, but you're also crushing it in the real estate space.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Doesn't always feel like it, you know. You're always looking up to the people that are above you and like kind of seeing what they're doing and getting excited about it. But thank you. I appreciate it.
But it's crazy. So the last few years, you've made over $1 million with your company, like wholesaling houses. And so to me, I mean, it's just like an amazing thing that it's a magic number, right? Making over $1 million a year.
Yeah,
so
there is something special about it, I guess. You know that you're actually doing volume at that point, or you're doing a business. Like you're not going to do that with just a few deals or anything like that.
So when you're growing up, did you always want to be a real estate investor? What were you doing?
I wanted to do film and television music. Okay. So my grandfather was actually a movie producer and director in Hollywood, and retired to live in this incredible house. One of the most interesting houses I've still ever been in, even though I've done real estate and Laguna Beach. And so just had a background in kind of the family had done stuff in media and TV, and a lot of musicians in my family. Okay. And like that was.
You play some music too?
I do. Yeah, okay. I really haven't in the past few years as much, but actually my undergrad in college was bassoon. Like I started with bassoon, and that's how I met my wife actually in high school through like an orchestra. And then was studying composition, and I just kind of had like a turning point towards the end of my college years where I just kind of recognized that the way that the industry looked wasn't necessarily what I think I wanted for my lifestyle. Like most of the people I knew that were doing it, they were like divorced or like
in the music industry, you mean?
Well, within film and television. Film and television composition. And I definitely just wanted kind of a different lifestyle. It looked really grindy to get to the top, and like people were kind of sacrificing everything for career. Knew I wanted to have kids, knew I wanted to be back in the mountains. And so, it was one of those things that I decided to, the advice around me was, get a job, and do all those sort of things. So I got a master's degree in urban planning. Okay. And then like went into specializing in transportation. And so I kind of went down that route for a while, and then, had some experiences that kind of pushed me towards real estate.
So how did you transition from urban planning to real estate investing? What did that look like?
Oh yeah. So I got my degree in urban planning. I was doing light rail systems. So I was like helping figure out where like we should put lines in Phoenix, which was really cool. I liked it. But at the same time, I had this entrepreneurial itch, but no one in my family really was that way. I'd never really been exposed to it. It was like, actually, honestly, the first time I even thought about entrepreneurship was in one of my master's class, like a master's degree classes. There was a class that was like about like innovation in urban spaces, and they were talking about like and attracting entrepreneurs. And I was like, wait, I want to be that person. Yeah. Like I want to build businesses. I want to do that.
I want to be the urban planner. I want to be the entrepreneur. And
And it was pretty funny because that was like the first time it really sat with me. But I like remember the moment decisively. I was like, oh, maybe that's the sort of person that I'm called to be. And so I got a job that allowed me to go back to where my wife and I are from, because I was living in Phoenix for like 6 years, and it was with a bureaucracy, and I absolutely hated it. It was like I had been working private sector before, and now I was working in bureaucracy. It was not a good fit. And I was really dissatisfied, but during the time that I was there, I had like convinced myself like, well, I'll stay for 5 years because then I get vested for a pension. I will do this. And like, I was like probably one of the lower periods of my life where I just felt really like misaligned, and I had like lack of vision, lack of direction. But at the same time, I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad around that time.
That's a book that changed everybody's lives. That was a book that changed my life. And I hear that so many times. And so you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then you just had like an epiphany or like an aha moment.
Well, yeah, because my buddy was going through kind of a similar experience too, where he was reading at the same time, and my friend, her dad had bought multifamily buildings in San Jose. Okay. And so he was like the only person I knew that had ever done anything like that or built, a real estate portfolio. And so lucky for me, he loves to talk about it. And so like his kids, like they got so tired of hearing their dad talked about all the time about like, you should invest in real estate and do this stuff. But then I was like, tell me everything. And it was just like the most willing audience ever. And he got me really excited just about the idea of doing it. So while I was working at that job that wasn't particularly fulfilling, my wife and I bought a duplex with an FHA loan.
Okay. To live in or to
So our plan was we had lived with roommates before, and like we really didn't need very much. We were living like an 800 square foot house at the time. I was just, kind of out of my master's degree. And so we were like, well, college demographic seems like that'd be easy for us to rent to because we're pretty close to college age. So like we could probably screen good tenants and stuff. Yeah. My wife worked at the university, and so we bought a duplex that was walking distance to the university.
Okay.
It was like a 2-story style. It was a basement that had been converted, and then above it was like the actual original house, which was like a 900 square foot 3-bed, 1-bath.
Okay.
And so our plan was like, well, we'll buy with the FHA so we can get a ton of leverage. We'll live in the top unit and rent out one room if we want to, and if not, we won't. And then we'll rent out the bottom unit. And so we bought the property, and I don't remember if we brought in a roommate immediately. We had various roommates over the while, but like we bought the property, moved in. We didn't quite, make the guidelines for the FHA. Yeah, my wife was so terrified about that. She's like, we're going to get convicted in mortgage fraud. I'm like, sweetie, like, it's fine. We're going to move in. Like, it's not going to be an issue. But to this day, like when like the ambulance like is going by, I hear sirens.
What are those things? Can you
explain with the FHA loan, you're supposed to say, like, if you get an owner-occupied loan, you need to like move into the property within a certain amount of time because they don't want people using owner-occupied loans for investment properties to abuse it.
Wait, so you guys didn't move into it? Or
no, we were going to, but we had there were tenants in both units when we bought it.
Okay.
And we tried to get a buyout agreement from one of them.
Oh, okay. So you couldn't keep the tenants out as well.
They were both student tenants, and they're like, well, we want to wait till the end of the semester, and like their terms were egregious. And so I was like, okay, we'll just wait till like the semester.
So it wasn't like you guys wanted to move in, but
we just couldn't make it. We couldn't make a deal work that was like reasonable. So I was like, babe, like I think the FHA is going to be okay with it taking us 4 months to get in. They're not coming by the house, but like she's like a rule. She's definitely a rule follower. So like whenever I hear sirens, I'll tease her. I'll be like, babe, I think it's them. They're coming for you. So we moved in, and then like reality immediately set in because like it all happened at once. We had hired someone to replace the windows because they were still wood framed. The property's from 1947.
Okay.
And when they were doing the bottom unit, the framing around the windows had been like totally destroyed by like termites. And we're like, oh, that's not good. Like, nothing that was caught during inspections. And then we started investigating further because there was like evidence of like water damage on the flooring. And I started opening walls, and then I found out like, oh no, like this property is not in good condition. There's some real big problems. And so we actually had a foundation. We have expansive clay soils, and basically the stairs cantilevered the front wall out, but like. So there was like serious structural damage that also would lead to flooding. I didn't know it at the time. Totally missed on the inspections. Now that I like know a thing or two about real estate, I'm like, oh, that's obvious. It's flashed. Like there was a flashing on the outside of like the stem wall where it was like sticking out of the wall, but like inspector didn't catch it. It was wild. So and then I got fired from the job that I wasn't very happy at anyway. So I was like, that was like kind of it stung.
Everything happened at once. So
this was like within 2 or 3 days, right around New Year's.
You move into the house, like you find like the termites, you find there's flooding, there's water damage, and then you get fired from
your job. And then I get fired from my job. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And I had literally just moved in. And so it was like a relief to not be at the job anymore because I knew it wasn't the right fit. But at the same time, like rejection hurts. And rejection just hurts. Like it just hurts like for anyone to be like, yeah, we don't want you there. And it was like really a culture thing. I just wasn't. I was called to be an entrepreneur, and like bureaucracy is like kind of the worst place for that because you take initiative, you have conviction, you want to see change happen, and everybody else that's there, like the culture is like, keep your head down, keep your seat warm, and like eventually you'll get your pension. So it was just like, it wasn't the right fit. Yeah.
So so that was like your at that point. So like, how did you eventually get into wholesaling or flipping houses?
Okay. Yeah. I'll try to keep it kind of short, but it's a powerful story for me because it was a really difficult period, because so I had time now because I was no longer employed. So I hired my buddy, and we spent the next month tearing apart a lot of the unit to figure out what was wrong.
To fix your house.
And to put things back together. Fast forward, like I got a tenant in there. She was great. She was a traveling nurse. Then after that, I got another tenant in there. The next winter was one of the biggest winters we had in Reno. And unfortunately, because of those clay soils, I didn't know at this point yet that the flooding was the real issue at the property. We had like a unseasonably, we had like basically a big snowstorm followed by like Pineapple Express, which is just like hot, water off the Pacific coming through. And so then there was a rainstorm, and I got about 8 inches of water altogether in the basement with the tenants living in there.
So
it started at about 3, and then I started pumping it, but it just kept going.
The tenants were living in there when it was flooding.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And the first time that we got like, it was only like 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and I was using a transfer pump, and they were like, "We're fine." I'm like, "You're not fine. There's laminate floors in here." Like,
yeah.
And then like within a few days, like it got much worse. It got to like 3 or 4 inches, and so I realized like, oh my gosh, like this is.
Was at least there's like a free swimming pool for them then, right?
Yeah. And so at this time, I'm like feeling pretty stupid. I'm like, man, like I was hoping that we were going to be buying a property with an FHA loan every year, and we were just going to springboard as we got equity.
And that's a great strategy, I think.
Yeah, yeah. It just happened to be the first property we bought ended up like it was a 3.5% loan, but it ended up being like $70,000 that I didn't have to
renovate and fix everything
twice. Because now the second time I had to cut all the drywall up like a few feet. I had to pull the whole kitchen out. We had to redo the whole thing, and I needed to find a way to deal with the flooding problem because there's a drainage issue. It's going to happen. So. Yeah. So I paid for an overpriced contractor just because I didn't know anything about like bidding contractors or whatnot, but they gave me certainty that like, we know how to do this repair. And so they charged me, I think it was like $25,000 to do like an interior sump pump system. So basically they like broke up the concrete around the perimeter of the stem wall on the inside, put these little plastic drains in there that then go to like different sump pumps that were set up on like an angle, like perforated drains. And yeah, fortunately, like years later, I can attest that the system works. So like there's been plenty of times I see the little sump pumps working outside. They're like clearing the water out. The tenants haven't had to be vacated. But yeah, I had literally been working at a restaurant after like I had like first fixed the house. So like I lost my job. I fixed up the house, and then I was like, what do I want to do? And I was like, I could go back into planning, but planning is always going to be selling my time. Like that is like that is the business model. Like I had seen consulting, like you're always selling time, and then you're punching time cards for like
for the rest of your life, basically.
And the consulting business, like seeing on the private sector side what it looked like to actually be a consultant, I was just like, seems really miserable. You're always just like grinding to try to like generate work. Then you have to do all the work and fulfill it. And so there were a lot of things about the professional consulting world that I was like, I don't think I want to do that either. And as much as I just gotten kicked in the teeth with the duplex, I was just like convicted. I was like, no, like I really want to do like, infill land development. Like I know that's kind of like my calling. That's why.
What's infill land development?
So like it's doing boutique small projects where like you find lots that are like already within like the urban core or like within like they're not greenfield.
Ground up construction you're talking about.
Yeah, ground up construction. That was what I realized. I was having these epiphanies that I was like, that's why I went in urban planning. I should have done an MBA in finance. Like if I knew that it was like real estate development that I was interested in, but at the time it was just I knew I loved great spaces, and that's why I kind of went in urban planning.
That's what you enjoy.
But it was the entrepreneurial aspect of it that I didn't realize was important to me.
Yeah.
And so I came up with this framework that, there's like a certain little, like, it's not even me. Like, I feel like sometimes there's like a stroke of genius, but it's not attributable to you. You're just like, wow, that was a really useful frame. I don't know where it came from, but it's been really like serving to me.
Can you explain that?
Oh, I'm about to. Like, I just had a concept at that point where I was like, I don't know how I become a developer. I don't know how I get to doing real estate the way I want to, but I know that I can make decisions that are directionally correct. So if I think of my life as like a compass, I may not know like the GPS of how I get to my outcome, but I know that if I want to go north, that if I go somewhere between east and west facing that direction, that I'm going to get closer, and it'll probably become more apparent as I get further along the path, like how to get towards my goal.
You kind of have like an end goal, like farther down the line in line, and but you don't know how you're going to get there. You just have like a general direction, and then so you're taking steps in faith, knowing that as you take the steps, you'll have a better direction, and you might veer off the path here and there, but you're headed in the right general direction.
Right. And I recognize that to become a developer, you were going to need to stack a ton of different skills, none of which I had. And so, well, maybe I should just focus on one skill right now that's directionally correct, and then I'll continue to learn from there, like what other skills I probably need to bring online.
Very smart.
Well, yeah, and like it was just one of those things that like and the reason why I say that it almost feels like a stroke of genius that wasn't mine or somewhere else was like that was one of the periods of my life where I had like the least level of confidence. I had like developed really, really negative views of self, and I was just like in a very low trough and just had like real like it was just emotionally very difficult for me. So to have belief and faith during that period of my life that, taking action would result in getting closer to it felt like it wasn't,
from you at that point in time.
Yeah, exactly. It was something deeper. It was something else.
But it was probably something inside you, though. I mean, like it was just like deep inside. But like I feel like every entrepreneur that I know that is successful, they all have like a desire or a drive that's something hidden deep that kind of moves them forward. So I think even in your darkest despair, when you're like down and out of your luck, like that drive, that inner drive is like that makes all people successful. Like it was hidden somewhere in there, and it kind of just surfaced for a little bit, and then kind of like put you in that right direction. I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to explain it. And so what that was kind of telling me was like, I need to build skills that are relevant to real estate and business, and I don't have any. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should learn real estate sales. Maybe that seems like... As
a realtor, you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was like, I knew nothing. And I was just like, that seems directionally correct, because if you're a developer, you probably have to sell your properties, and I'll probably learn a lot about real estate. Yeah. So I then set upon myself while I was working at this restaurant to get my real estate license. So I got my real estate license. I started working at Keller Williams. I was recruited by the woman who actually sold me the house, long-term, like family friend. Okay. And she was like, yeah, no, Keller Williams is great. They'll help you get on boarded. I think in hindsight, I was like, actually probably a commercial shop would have been way better, just because of my background in urban planning and like being really educated and everything. I think I would have much more quickly made way more sales actually in that environment. Yeah. But like at the time had like no real direction on it. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. When I first got into residential, like real estate, like I did terrible though. I like did so bad, because like I would work really hard every day, but I was taking all the wrong actions because I'd never worked in a sales role before.
So you didn't understand what before. You didn't. So like you're a hard worker, but then you didn't have like you didn't know what skills or what effort moved the ball forward. I feel like that's an important part of like entrepreneurship or business, is that like if you aren't moving the right levers, then you're not going to get the right result. And you can be pulling, a lot of times we think these are the levers to pull, but then these are the wrong ones. So if you just even pull these one like a little harder, like you'll get way more success as long as you're pulling the right levers.
Right. So, yeah. And the thing too was like, there was also for me a misalignment of like state. Where like when I actually did start doing the right things, like I started door knocking, because like at first I was just like in spreadsheets, because I'd been an engineer before. Basically like that was like what I always got rewarded for, was like I'd figure out how to map light rail lines. And so when all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you need to call people and tell them that you want to represent them. No sales background, felt very introverted, felt very like underqualified. And was like just like in a period of really bad self-esteem. And if you're in a period of really bad self-esteem, it's hard to do sales. Like you're not going to succeed, because you don't have confidence. Why should they have confidence in you? So I went out there and I put the effort out. I did door knocking. I did actually like take initiative and try doing things, but I think I had very little success just because like I was not in the state to be successful. But and during this time period, I had like the emergence of an autoimmune condition happen. So this was like ultimate kind of like one of the lowest points of my life, where I was like started having all these crazy health problems, had no idea what they're happening. I thought I could be dying, not making any money, really struggling because I'm working like at the restaurant still to try to make ends meet, and then like working all day long trying to do the real estate sales to learn it. And it comes to a breaking point where like I'm starting to lose range of motion in my shoulders, and I just like my health was just like crumbling. It was really scary, because like they couldn't figure out what it was at first.
It feels like almost hopeless. Like you're all the bad things
exactly.
Like,
I got all this debt on the property. The property didn't work out, so maybe I'm a dumbass, I'm thinking, and then like things aren't working out. So with the real
as a
estate.
realtor, the thing about that's good and bad is that you only make money what you produce, right? So you eat what you kill. So if you're not finding any like clients, you're making like zero money at this point.
Exactly. Working even spending money, because you have to get like to all of your fees to do it. It's a business. You got to set it up. And so at one point, I talked to my dad, and I was like kind of in despair. And I was just like, honestly, what do you think I should do? He's like, I think you should step back. I think you should get a job. And I was like, okay, like right now, like I know on my longer path, that's maybe not like where I need to go, but maybe Dad's right. Like maybe like I need a reset. And then I got really, really fortunate. Like, my buddy Russell reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I know you were thinking about maybe getting a job again. He's like, there's this thing I saw on Craigslist for this company that flips houses, and they're looking for like a project manager. And he's like, it seems like a really interesting job. You might be good at it. And I was like, that would be perfect. That's directionally correct, because obviously like, I've already learned a ton with the real estate sales by not making money about what you're not what you're not supposed to do. But like learning how to manage contractors and actually run construction jobs would probably be really helpful. And the job was with Wedgwood. And Wedgwood has a presence in Hawaii, so I'm sure you're familiar with Wedgwood.
I've never heard of them before.
Really?
So, Wedgwood?
Wedgwood?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know Wedgwood?
No.
Maybe they don't have a presence in Hawaii. I know that one of the executives, I thought, had like ran some operations there. I could be wrong.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're a pretty big size company. They when I was there, they had about 800 employees, and they did foreclosure fix and flip across the whole Western United States.
Flip houses.
Yeah, at scale.
Okay.
Big time.
I know, guarantee they don't have a presence in Hawaii because I think we would know them. So
yeah, I would think so too. Yes. Yeah, and so then I don't know where I got my wires crossed on that, but yeah, like pretty much all of the Mountain West, and
so
California.
Big flipping company.
Big flipping company. Okay. Yeah, and so I got hired there, and honestly, once again, one of the reasons that I got hired was because it was like, and then my duplex flooded and I had to remodel it and do all this stuff. And they're like, okay, well, I guess you have a little bit of construction background, so that helped out. And during my time at Wedgwood, which was the course of like 2 years, I flipped 70 some odd properties for them.
So you're the project manager. So I mean, the cool thing about being part or joining a company as an employee is that you get to see how it works. Totally. And I think a lot of the times when, like, let's say like flipping houses like is here and you feel like you're a W-2 here, you don't really like believe it's possible until you see the company, see how it works, and walk and like talk to the people, see the checks and everything. And I think a big part of just being an entrepreneur or just succeeding is getting around people who are actually having success and like knowing that it's even possible. Like,
totally. Yeah, I 100% agree. And so what was cool about that job was it was very entrepreneurial, I would say, where it's like, my supervisor was down here in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And then I had 2 other coworkers with me that were project managers in our area.
Okay.
And like our job duties were basically like you'd get the list of everything that was going to trustee sale for that week. We would divide who was going to cover which territory because it's a larger area. We had like 6 different counties. And so we'd get bank keys. So we'd be able to open up like properties that, had been winterized.
Okay.
And if property was occupied, you do your best to get intel on the situation there and, you make contact with the occupants potentially. And then you'd go to the properties, you'd estimate, okay, this is what I think the remodel cost is going to be for it. This is like kind of like a general like idea of the things we have to do here. Then we'd go to trustee sale. We'd bid against the competitors on the phone. You guys
are doing the whole process then. It's not just project management. You guys are actually buying the houses. You're analyzing the deals. You're doing
So I would have to comp the deals too. And that was the other reason because I had a realtor background. I would like comp the deals, send them to my boss. He would review that. And then he would, in the company they call it quarterback, where like I'd be at the sale and I would be like with my AirPods on. And then like he'd be telling me what to bid. We'd buy the house. And then like they would distribute the deals. Usually if you walked to the house, it was like usually going to be your project sort of thing, but it wasn't always the case because we had to make sure the territories made sense. But you had to build your contractor base.
So you're doing all the contract. I mean, you
all the contractor management, and you had to find them too. That was like part of like kind of like passing through the fire was like, the Jedi has to build a lightsaber. You have to build your crews. So
now you're accountable to them too, because like it's your contract that you found. You can't blame somebody else.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so it was very entrepreneurial, and it was a great company to work for. I really enjoyed the culture a lot. I enjoyed my coworkers. And it allowed me to learn a lot of skills, but really the agency I had for it was awesome. I enjoyed that a lot, where, I wasn't accountable to being in an office for certain hours. I was accountable for results, like get your inventory moved through, make sure these houses get driven, all those sort of things. And so that was an awesome experience. I loved it.
I mean, that sounds, it's almost like a little like flipping internship or something.
It is.
I mean, you get paid for it, like it's an actual job, but you're literally learning like all the skill sets and like from the A to Z's to how to flip houses, finding them, funding them, like bidding on them, like finding the contractors, managing them. I mean, selling in the back end is not super complicated, but I don't know if you guys are involved with that or not. So
so we would pass it off to like our listing agents. Basically we would do the ready to list for that week, make sure photos got done, it got cleaned, and so it was like totally ready and staged. And then like we'd pass off to the listing agent, and we were responsible for like maintenance of the home during listing
cutting
and
the
escrow,
grass, keeping it clean or whatever.
Making sure that all those things happen. Killed a lot of trees during those years. Like like we have all these checklists now because like I would forget to turn the water on. So like in my business, I was building the checklist that I use now because I'd be like, oh crap, I just killed the tree in the yard while we're supposed to be monitoring it. So
70 houses you guys flipped or you flipped.
Yeah.
And then what was like the next step for you after that?
Well, I was, it was one of those things that I realized that I really loved, having the agency, but I also was like, I like winning as a team. And so even though like I had like an entrepreneurial itch, a lot of it was being satisfied being able to have the agency that I had there. It
like
wasn't
coworkers, you mean like a good work environment and things.
Yeah, and it was like for me, like I kind of knew like I could go out and do my own thing, but that sounded really lonely. I didn't really want to do that. And also I like, this is just being totally transparent. Like I just knew because of like my background with like my emotional state, it was going to be really hard to toe the line because like I could be like really volatile, and I was just like, man, it'd be really hard for me to stay focused on this all by myself. And I would have like, I loved the company, but I had like a very frank conversation with my boss. I was like, I feel like I've learned a lot and I'd like to keep growing, but I'm afraid if I stay in this role specifically, like I'm not going to be able to keep growing at the rate that I want to. You know, growth was the maximum. It was more than money for me. Like I was never money motivated, but growth always. And he was, you know, pretty open with me. He's like, it's probably not going to happen. You know, like it's just like the nature of the way the business is set up is like, you know, eventually maybe 5-7 years down the road. But like, if, you know, I don't think that like you're going to be able to get advancement since you're in a remote office, like you're working a market away from everything. And so I kind of realized I was like, okay, well, if I want to stay directionally correct with my vision of getting to doing land development and having that sort of impact, I probably need to move on. And that was like one of the scarier decisions because I knew my wife and I were going to try getting pregnant and we we're going to do all those things. During that time at Wedgwood, I had met my business partner on Bigger Pockets, my current business partner. I met him on Bigger Pockets. He had literally just started getting into wholesaling. And I was just networking with people because I wanted to continue meeting people. And we ended up buying a few deals from him when I was at Wedgwood, and I was a project manager for those. And I just really liked him. You know, when I first met with him, he was doing his music career and then kind of wholesaling on the side. And I had...
He was connected in the music as well too, probably. A little
bit,
so.
You know, it's one of those things that like... he had a very different, he was like a rapper and he like was doing Warped Tour and all sorts of stuff, and he had a mullet at the time. That was part of his branding. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. But what I really liked about him was when we like got coffee and we talked, I was just like, man, this guy is so self-disciplined. Like he's working in the music industry and he's doing this wholesaling thing. But like nobody's telling him to get up and run marketing. Nobody's telling him to follow up with these leads. Nobody's like telling him to do any of the things that he's doing. He's just like very directed and very consistent with like taking action.
You know, I mean, on that point, I feel like there's like just certain people I meet where like you have to tell them exactly what to do and what's next and like handhold them for the next step. There's certain people who just have like this itch to just go and do things, and then sometimes the itch is like it'll get them in trouble because they just want to like fix things or do things on their own or like figure it out. But the majority of the time is like the person who has an itch to just go and do things, like those are the guys who I want on my team. Like you know, like they accomplish so much more. The energy is there, like they're pushing things forward versus like getting pulled, like you know, just like that. And so I mean, like a lot of the people on our team, I'm so grateful for them because like every day I wake up and like they're like pushing, and I love that. Like, you know, so.
And so there was like both like, and I've heard Alex Hormozy talk about this, about like finding the right business partner and like versus finding the wrong business partner and stuff like that. Alex and I got really lucky because we didn't know any of this stuff.
Actually, your business partner.
Alex, my business. Not Alex Hormozy. That's confusing. So Alex, my business partner, you know, we had value alignment, which we wouldn't have been able to speak that out at that time.
Because you couldn't like articulate that, but just like intuitively.
Intuitively. Like, we had value alignment, and then we had skill alignment. It's like, you know how to source deals, I know how to fix them up, and I'm an agent, so I can sell them. So now all of a sudden we have enough components that we have a business model. Like we can source, we can actually do the full circle of like how you could monetize a deal. Individually, neither one of us really had the skill sets. You know, he was wholesaling, but he was kind of just like $5,000 above. Like, he was getting like $5,000 on his deals. He wasn't able to like monetize them for much because he didn't know much about sales or anything like that. So, and so, I told my boss, like, you know, I'm going to move on. I'm going to start doing stuff, you know, here locally. And then, you know, I parted ways. And it was one of the harder decisions I ever made, you know, to let go of the vine, you know.
I mean, it's so successful and you enjoy it, right? But then you're looking at a bigger opportunity and like it's over here. The thing is like this one, like the potential opportunity is so much bigger, but it's uncertain. So that's the scary thing where this one is great opportunity, but it's so certain. This one is like way bigger, maybe more fun, but it's so uncertain, right? So.
Yeah, and it was the family aspect too. I didn't have any other models that had done that in my life. Like the most kindred spirit I was to was my grandfather, but on my mom's side, and he was but he died when I was like in my late teens.
Okay.
And he also lived like pretty far away. So I didn't spend that much time with him, you know, but he had done land development. He was the movie producer. He was very entrepreneurial, but everyone else in my family, like never even seen the model, never had like any idea that was a thing. And so it was definitely embracing the unknown and like, you know, with wanting to have kids and then, you know, enjoying it being my favorite job I'd ever had and enjoying it so much to be able to say like, I think it's directionally correct to prioritize growth was really tough.
Yeah. That's crazy. And so, but it seems like it paid off. Now you guys are making over $1 million a year. But then, so like once you guys started partnering together, was it just smooth sailing from there? Or
oh hell no! Of course not. You know the answer to that. Yeah, that's a trick question.
Yeah. What was like? Did you guys have? What was like the biggest challenge when you guys kind of just trying to get off the ground from there?
Trying to get off the ground.
Got you thinking over here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the absolute biggest challenge would be, but the one thing that I would say off the top that comes to mind was probably cash flow. Like just, you know, we were wholesaling a number of the leads we had early, but they didn't make very much. And my business partner and I we took, you know, no profit from the business for basically the first year, just to build capital in the business. Having faith that was like the right thing to do. And so the first deal that we did that was an actual flip, we made $60,000 on, but the person who contracted that deal was new to wholesaling, but had like a sales background. He had done tech sales. And so he knew how to actually sell. So he actually got a really good deal as opposed to us where we'd always get like really small deals. So we would wholesale them because they weren't that deep. And we gave him 25% of that deal and he got to see like what we were doing. And that was like, that really resonated with me. Like we made like, I think like 40 or 45 after we had paid him out on that. And that was like sitting, like when we were at that house listing it, that was like the real connection for me of just like, we're doing it. Like it's going on the market. Like we like turned our first project. This is really, really cool. And that gave me a really big lift. Like, so that for the next, you know, year basically where I wasn't paying myself to like
you had
feel.
some reserves in place after that one sale or that one
deal.
Exactly.
We were just basically putting cash back in the business and like using like 100% leverage on all the deals. You know,
I feel like as an investor, it's like a roller coaster ride because there's like months where you're like, I can't eat, there's nothing coming in, it's so scary. Then you get like one giant check, like, yay, we made like $100,000 whatever. So like now you have this giant check. But then now you're back at it's just kind of like a world of like ups and downs, where like big wins and then like periods of just like grinding with no results.
Yeah, so. And I think that's one of the hardest things for cultivating the persistence with the business is because you can be doing the right actions, but like not be getting results. Or on the flip side, you can like be like overconfident because, you know, market things are happening or like just for whatever reason, it gets like you get a soft pitch and all of a sudden you just think like, I'm a genius, you know, and like I'm doing great. You know, that's not what I tend towards, like, but I've definitely seen like that behavior with other people too, you know, because it is easy to take the external results and like attribute them to yourself, but like often they're not, you know.
So how do you go from the first year, maybe just barely getting by, to doing like over $1 million a year?
So yeah, we mainly focused on flipping. My daughter was born on, so we focused on flipping. We started in 2019 and we did like, I think three or four flips that year. And then like in June of 2019, we did 3 or 4 flips that closed out that year. I think it was 3. And then we had like a number of other wholesales. And then, so like I got pregnant, like my wife got pregnant, like literally the month after I quit. And
you guys had all the free time, so you just
exactly right, exactly. After I quit from Wedgwood, I got my wife pregnant because that's all I was doing. But my daughter was born on March 14th. 2020. So literally in the hospital, the like safety net was like hitting every single day for the stock market because it was dropping 10% because of COVID
March
and lockdown.
2020 was a crazy time.
Yeah. So the market was just dropping, you know, like crazy for stocks. And so at that point, I think we had 3 or 4 flips that were active at that point. And there was like this decision point where I was listing all of them like the day or 2 days after my daughter was born. Like I didn't take any paternity leave. I was working the whole time. And we were like, do we keep buying inventory? And we were like, Yes. And so we like, it was one of those things where it was just like, we just made the decision, like, we're just going to keep going as though we assume that real estate's not going to totally fall apart. And so we just started continuing to contract deals. And for the first year, I mean, the year or two after that, we were probably contracting about 2 deals a month. Our average deal size was about 50,000 or so. So that was like what was getting us by. We weren't really building a whole lot of cash, but we did pick up a few decent rentals during that period that we decided to burr and keep just because rates were low and it was good to that. I don't think we really started pushing into the 7-figure range until, like, honestly, I think it coincided with, joining this isn't a pitch for like All Stars, but like for joining Ryan Pineda's program. The beginning of 2022, just because the market was ripping so much, we were making a lot on our deals. Deals we on the road to make 60, we're making 100, stuff like that. And so like we had flips that were trading out for more than they should have just because the market was like just going up.
I remember that it was like 2021, like so 2020, the world shut down. Yeah. We actually had a deal on the table that we signed docs on Friday. Saturday, the lender went out of business, and then we had to find another bid. It was crazy that time. And then we had some other deals in contract where I was like, okay, we let them go because I was so scared what was going to happen that way. So 2020 was terrible, or it was like super scary. Then the end of 2020 and then 2021 were just like the golden season where you could do no wrong, right?
Yeah, totally.
It was a crazy run.
You mess up your rehab and your hold time balloons and you make more money. It was like crazy. Yeah, but like 2020, like I actually don't remember, like at least in our market, being particularly scared. Reno was not nearly as shut down as Hawaii was. So we were still doing deals. We still actually had really good volume. There were buyers out there, and I was just watching inventory, and inventory just kept dropping. And I was like, okay, well, as long as inventory keeps dropping, like we're buying, And at the beginning of 21, it got to the point where like our market usually has like 1,000 active houses for, and we had like 300. And so, all of 21, 22, crazy competitive. And like we were underwriting deals way tighter because we needed to get them. And then once we got them, like fortunately the market, came up. But like right around the time that we joined, Future Flipper was kind of the fever pitch. Like that was when rates were starting to climb. It was like, 4%, because I think it was April of 22 that we joined.
Okay.
Rates were like hitting 4s and starting to move up to 5s. And then like literally like at the end of May, it just like shut off. And we had like 10 projects. And then I literally remember the day I came into the office and I was like looking at like our inventory, and I started recomping it. And like our competitors were like dropping $25,000 on a $325,000 house. Wow. And we had literally just bought a deal, and our resale for it was like one of those match models. And we were like, well, 325, that's going to be our exit. I'm like, 320 is not going to be our exit. Like we're in for a ride. And so that was when we shifted to doing the wholesale model. Okay. It's also when we got serious about learning how to do a sales process. We actually started really working on sales a little bit before that, but then started learning the importance really of like learning how to do sales well. And we really started getting much better at just getting more consistent on appointment and closing, hiring people. Yeah, there were a lot of things that were going on. We can break down.
So when you're doing, so in 22, do you feel like joining the coaching program was helpful?
I think the exposure was huge. Like the first time we came there, we like did roundtables, and that was the first time I'd ever been like around other people that were in our business. And like immediately was getting a ton of value. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. We should do that. Alex also ended up doing the 2-day program that Josh and Tiffany offer in Ohio. So he went out there and he learned all about like what they use.
Systems, because they're big on systems and processes and stuff, right?
Yeah, and like honestly, like one of the things that they talk about is like you need a really good phone system. So we use like smartphone, integrates with Podio, and that immediately was like, oh, our business is way better now just because we have like an actual real like phone system instead of using our cell phones. And so there was a lot of just like little 1% improvements, that were happening all across the business where we were just like, okay, now we have a better way to process leads. We have a better way to like track them in our CRM. We have better follow-up systems. And so we just started getting a lot more of those things in place. And it
I liked how you said there's little 1% like improvements, because I feel like as a business owner, like really the money is in the execution. Like flipping is as an idea is very simple. And there's a lot of great ideas out there, but it's all in the execution. And like the better you can just 1% every single day or over every quarter is like, that's really what drives up profitability, I think. And then so I think getting around masterminds, right? You get like a 1% nugget here, 1% nugget here. You go to Tiffany's like course, you get a 1%. Have a conversation with you. Actually actually, like, we had lunch today. I'm going to take some of the things I learned from you and actually implement it into our business. And just those little 1% things are really what really pushes you forward, like to really maximize like the opportunities.
Totally. Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, the second half of 22, I think we had like higher net profit. I think we had higher. No, that can't be. We definitely didn't have higher gross profit by December, but we had higher net profit June 2022 than we had by like December 2022, because like we were just like having to trade off all of these deals because we had 10 deals and we had to trade off half of them at a loss, half of them at break even. And at the same time, we were doing the wholesaling to kind of like get cash conversion cycle immediately because we were like, well, we're going to be losing money on all these flips. And so, yeah, like it was one of those periods that was very difficult because you just had to like kind of keep marching, even though like your bank account was going down every month because we just had to trade out of all these deals that we were in. I think one of the big improvements during that period was learning how to actually run a real sales process, which was something that we learned from like Josh and Tiffany too. So we learned how to really like qualify leads. So we were going on the right appointments. And then we developed like, a very like clear structure on how the sales process would work when someone was on appointment, what our offer intervals were, so that we weren't going to our max allowable offer right off the bat because sellers want to have like some sort of negotiation. They want to feel like they win. And so doing all of those things allowed us to start locking up deals deeper than we had been able to do before, which then made the business model more viable. Because before, like our average deal size for like a flip, we were underwriting for probably around 40,000. We were underwriting for years at 10% on cost of goods sold the profit margin that we wanted in our deal. Or I had three standards. We'll never do a deal for less than $10,000. Okay. So even if it was like we could buy it for 70 and sell it for it's just not worth the time. So we never do a deal for less than $10,000. Has to make at least 10% ROI and then 25% AROI. So annualized return on investment. Okay. So if the project's going to take a year, I'm not doing it for 10%. I'm going to it has to be fat if it's a really, really long deal. Got it. But if it's like our regular inventory, which is 3 to 4 months, 10%, that also hits 25%. So we started finding that we could actually increase like the size of like what our underwriting was, and then actually contract deals. And whereas before like average deal size for the flips was 40 without appreciation, then closer to 50 because of all the appreciation. Now we could like wholesale deals. It started at around 25, and now like our target is 30,000 on a deal for wholesaling, which
that's very good for wholesaling. I feel like
I think so too. Like I think that you can't. There's a certain level where there's a trade-off that's not. It's inefficient. You're not going to get deals. And at the same time, like for me, I'm like always very cognizant of like what's in the best interest of the seller. The best interest of the seller is like getting 100% a reasonable amount of proceeds. We're not here to scalp anyone at all. Ethically, I do not want to be that at all. But at the same time, like we need to be able to run our business and make like an actual like profitable return on investment, and to be able to give the sellers that quality of service and to be able to actually run a business that can profitably grow. Like the company has to make money. We can't do it for free because if we do, then like it just stops, I
mean, that's I feel like that's always like sometimes the challenge as a real estate investor is you're like, what's like an ethical amount of money to make, and what's like, because whenever you're buying like these houses, you're buying them at a discount, and so the seller is aware of it. They know your business, they know you're gonna make money, but there's always like this thing is how much money is enough money, how much money is too much, and how much is like too little, right? Because like, but there's also the risk involved. I think a lot of times is sometimes we'll make a lot of money, but then it's because we have to take on a big risk, and whenever like you're taking a big risk, we also have times when we lost money. So what's that worth? Because like let's say like if we lose money, the seller doesn't like give us any more money back either. So it's like that's that aspect of it too. So there's always like that balance of trying to be like do what's best for a seller, but not put us at exposure, right? So,
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. And it's been a push and pull. Like there's a lot of times that like we've had to have like kind of like we call them like like just call a meeting in the office where like ethically, like the seller's a rollover. Like how are we going to handle this? The price that they gave us ballpark that they want is like beneath our initial offer. Happens very rarely. Usually if it does, we've totally misqualified what the condition is, or it's like it's some sort of weird situation and it's not a real lead. Almost always we have to bring them down and negotiate, or they're close to kind of like where we can make a deal and we work from there. But for sure, like it's one of those things that I always have, said that like, even if we were entirely selfish, our reputation is worth more than like any one deal. And so like, even if I didn't care about these other people, which I totally do to a fault at times, where it's like, we're trying to be very accommodating, you know? And we've given up plenty of deals that we haven't had to. Like once we were already in escrow, once we were at closing, the seller misunderstood their payoff. They're freaking out because they thought they were going to get more in proceeds. And like, or they have like, there was like one situation we had where this real like heartbreaking story with this mom who had like a really sick kid, and like she like miscalculated proceeds, and like we decided to come out of pocket because we just thought it was like the right thing to do. At the same time, like we're still like always like working to try to make sure we're actually preserving profit in the business. But like our rule of thumb has just been that like, if the seller's like number, what they want is close to like where our offer already makes sense, we will offer just beneath that so that we can actually let them fight a little bit and negotiate or whatnot, so that they feel good about the deal, because we don't want them to back out. And if you just are like, oh yeah, we'll take it for whatever, they're like, oh crap, I undersold. And then the deal will fall apart.
That's also another challenge too, I think, just like as a sales process is, if like this is something that I feel like I've learned like a lot recently, is that if you give something away for free or they don't see a sacrifice from it, people don't value it.
Exactly.
Like, so like even it can just be like let's say when you give a guy like here's $10,000, but then they think like you're rich. And they're like, that's no big deal. Like what's the thing, right? But if it's like, dude, I only make $50,000 a year, but here's $10,000, and they see it's a sacrifice for you. Or like here's $5,000 and I make $50,000. They're getting less money, but they like appreciate it so much more,
the value is
on
different.
The sacrifice that you're making. And so I think a lot of times we do like the sellers a disservice by not coming in, letting them negotiate a little, because they're gonna get like the same price, but they're not as happy that they didn't don't come away like realizing like the way we're giving something from them, right? So
but then if they're way off, like their number's too low, like we just like the way that we handle our sales process is there's like a qualification by the financial partners, because we use an app called Company Cam. Shoot photos of the property that stream up to the cloud. Then the person who's actually underwriting will like make sure that the underwriting's good and say, the number we gave you before you left the office, that's correct, or like, no, we're adjusting it this much. And so when they come back, they tell the seller what the qualification is, and then we have some intervals to tighten up off of the initial qualification if required, and we have like scripting for that. But if their number is like lower what the initial qualification is, we just come with the qualification. So because we're not playing that game of trying to like be like opportunistic like that. So like we're like, this is a deal that works for us. We would take this deal all week long just because this person's a rollover. We're not gonna like.
So like if your number to buy it at is, let's say like 300,000, and the seller's like, I just want 250. You say, no, I'll still give you 300,000 for that deal.
I'd have to check with Alex on the deals where we've had it happen, because it's been so rare. But in general, we've usually come up higher than where their number was at to make sure that they felt like we just felt good about it. In terms of, I can't speak to 100% in terms of all the deals that we've done in the past where we came in with it, because it's such a rare situation. But for sure, like it's one of our things that we're like really cognizant of. Like we don't want to like be opportunistic like that, because the reality is too, a lot of times if you do to have that behavior as part of your business, like the sellers often will find out, because they were calling all the other buyers too, and the other buyer will be like, well, I was going to give you 300,000, and all of a sudden like they're like calling you, freaking out, like I want to cancel. Because they lost trust with you.
But to counter that is like, sometimes there's sellers who are just overpaid, right? So like, even if we've had happens where like, this is our number, like our fair offer.
Oh, sure.
But then somebody will just be like, I'll give them more. And they'll cancel because they want that. But then like, and then they may not close, but there's people who will be willing to pay more than like what you're able to pay. Right? So,
but the thing for me is just like, I want to have conviction that our number makes sense and that we're offering. As long as it's like well-grounded, why we're offering what we're offering, I feel good about it. But if it's just like,
too low.
Too low, like, it doesn't feel comfortable. Yeah.
No, totally. I love that. I feel like it's the right thing to do. Is that actually happened to us once too, where I was like, we was meeting with the seller, I had my number, and then like they actually wanted way lower. I was like, no, I think like we'll give you if we get this number, we're happy. So like we still give them like number we usually came with it. So
and
also you guys sleep at night too, right? So
100%. Like I've seen people that have done the business in ways where it's like, whatever gets it done, like kind of that ends justify the means sort of thing.
Yeah.
And like there were people that used to send us deals sometimes. They'd be like, yeah, like they only want to sell to owner occupant. So tell them that like you're my cousin and you're looking at for me because I'm going to live there. And I'm just like, no, we're not doing that. Like we're not interested in like playing these games. Like there's this thing called objection handling. Yeah. And if you can't handle the objection of like, I want to sell to an owner occupant, like we're not going to pretend that we're doing the deal as an owner occupant, you
That's
know?
funny.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, so like, let's say somebody is like trying to just break into the real estate. Let's say they're working on a W-2, maybe they don't like, but they see you and they're inspired by your story. What kind of advice would you give to somebody like that?
Take steps that are directionally correct. You know, like I think that there's something to be said for 100%. You got to take risks. You got to believe in yourself, and you have to have confidence that even if things don't go according to plan, then you'll land on your feet. And there's a lot of ways that you can hedge your bets by making sure like you do have cash reserves, and then like talking yourself through like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, then what next? And then you realize that like usually like there's not going to be a cataclysmic cliff that you fall off of. Like you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And kind of similar to my own journey, like sometimes the directionally correct thing to do might be to do a job that's more related to where you're trying to go and learn skills and build with that. But in terms of the thing that I would caution them with is a lot of people definitely do get sold on the concept that like, oh, if I become an entrepreneur, like I will have freedom and I will have like, I'll be happy and I won't have to work as much. And like, there's all these things that there's like this assumption that work or life will get like easier in a sense. Cause there's so many people that are attracted to real estate because they're like, oh, I want to have passive income because I just want to do what I want. I don't want my boss to tell me. I have never been more accountable to people in my life than I am now. I have like payroll that I have to make sure that we meet every single month. I have deal flow to make sure that those guys are getting fed. I have worker satisfaction to be concerned about. I have to show up with leadership even when I'm terrified about the situation. And I eat last. Everybody gets paid. And then if there's anything left over at the end, you know, that's what we get. But the worst part is, you don't even get to take it home because that's pre-tax. So like we talk about doing over $1 million, that's $1 million in top line. Then you have all of your operational costs and you're marketing your business. Then you get to your bottom line, which is lower. And then after that, you got to pay the feds. And then like you actually get like what would be the equivalent of your take home pay. So a lot of times that people that worked in W-2, they don't recognize when someone says like, I made $1 million, that it's the top line. It's like their business that they work for. That's like, did a crazy amount in sales. But then in terms of when it gets down to the very bottom of it, the net profitability is much lower. As the entrepreneur, like you need to feed off of the net profit, but at the same time, like I don't even take a fraction of that home. Most of that's just getting reinvested in the business to build capital reserves and all those sort of things like that. And so like entrepreneurship is this amazing journey for like personal growth, and there's absolutely opportunity to increase your income, which is really exciting. And it's like not to be undermined at all, because like now I have this solution where like with my life, if I'm like, I want to have more money for whatever the reason might be. For me, a lot of it's security driven, like taking care of my parents, taking care of, family. Like I have the option of like, oh, I can just go continue to work and make more money. Whereas if you're at a sort of job where that's not an option, all you can do is cut expenses. So like a lot of my friends, like when I talk to them, you can just kind of feel like that sort of sense of like, there's not much growth in my
it feels more
field.
Hopeless. It's like
more hopeless. Like I already know what I'm going to make 30 years from now. I'm going to get 2 or 3 promotions, and like there's going to be this much of cost of living adjustment. So it's like the life's already been mapped out. There's like a lot of the excitement's gone of like, well, maybe I could do something really big or whatever.
The levers that you can pull. So I think when you're working at W-2, the only lever you can pull is just save more, right? So like or spend less. And so like that's how I can like kind of like secure my future. But as an entrepreneur, like you said, it's so true. There is like more accountability because there's people who are dependent on you. There's more things like you're in charge of your own destiny. But because you're in charge of your own destiny, now there's levers you can pull to make a lot more potentially.
Totally.
Than if you're just in your W-2. So,
totally. But yeah, it's one of those things that I like to with people that are interested in it. I try to give it to them very straight. Like I had a lot more sleepless nights being an entrepreneur than I did working at W-2, and I've had a lot more demand put on me. But that's exactly what I signed up for. For me, it wasn't like I wanted a lot of money. And like that was actually probably a fault for a while because we weren't prioritizing
profitability
as much. And like I just also had limited beliefs in terms of what profitability could look like. But for me, like I just wanted growth by the boatload, and like definitely like that's what the experience has brought. And sometimes it's like drinking from the fire hose, and sometimes like, growth often actually feels really painful while it's happening.
True, so true, yeah.
But the thing is, like, as it happens, Alex Hormozi had this thing that I was hearing on his podcast. I listened to a lot of his and Lila's stuff. Yeah, no, I really enjoy his stuff. He was saying something about like plan A's versus plan B's, and how like as you continue to like grow in your business, if your plan A is not working, now like your plan B, the standard's been set so much. Like your plan B at this point is so much higher than what your plan A ever was before, because now you've grown so much. Because like that's one of the things I think all the time, like, when I get frustrated with the business, I'm like, I could like deal with any of this stuff. I just go back to real estate sales, and now I know how to market and do sales processes. Like I could just be showing houses and like, like, cause I'm a broker too. I'm just like, I could easily do $350,000 a year with way less work than what I'm doing now. But then I'm like,
B, right?
but now I realize I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. That's my plan B. Like, because now I'm really learning a lot more about leadership, and I'm learning how to like run teams, and I'm learning how to build people up, and like I'm learning all these things that aren't increasing my profitability right now, but they're building my skill set and they're building me as a person, And so for me, that's the exciting part about this journey is like the continuous growth.
It's crazy because when I was in my W-2, I didn't even know the word of entrepreneurship existed, right? It's like I was in my bubble, like get a job, like, I was in the square box the whole time. And then since I've been in this journey of entrepreneurship, meeting guys like yourself, like so many of my limiting beliefs about like life and like money and things and opportunity have been like blown away. Yeah. But it's crazy. Like I just come to like, I'm like realizing like what you're saying right now is actually true for my life. Is like, if everything were to crash and like my main business were to die, I would easily make like 3 or 4 times what I was making in my W-2 as a plan B, which is just crazy to be in that position, just because I've grown as a person, my skill set, my knowledge and my ability. And even if I had like zero resources, like let's say I moved to like Canada or like let's say Nevada, I feel like I could do the same thing just because of like the skill set that you built over the last like 3 or 4 years.
100%.
So.
Yeah, totally. And it's wild to think that like, there's just certain skill sets that like will reward you immensely. And then there's other skill sets that, might be really important to society and they're very technical, but you can't like monetize them the same way. But like learning sales, learning marketing, learning like, like fulfillment for customers and how to read your financials and stuff like those skills pay off big time, it's really interesting.
That's so true.
I was gonna say, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. So like in terms of being like the entrepreneur and then having people that are working at your company and you're always driving and having this entrepreneurial vision, how do you keep like your employees engaged and how do they get to like come along on the journey like with you as you grow? Because, that's one of the things I think about a lot when I come to these events is, like all these people here are working for Ryan Pineda and Ryan's talking about like basically like, he's doing his sales pitch of like, you should buy coaching because like if you don't become an entrepreneur, you'll never make enough money to like achieve your vision. And I'm just always like wondering like, well, how do we build our teams and like how do we grow together and win together? Great
question. So like here's something that I've learned like over the years is like when you're hiring somebody, there's really 2 avatars. There's an entrepreneur and there's an employee. So as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs, they want to grow. They have like big visions. They always want to grow like yourself. They want to be learning, expanding and everything, right? An employee is like, I want safety and security. I don't necessarily want the responsibility or the accountability. I just want to make sure like my paycheck is paid and like I'm not going to like lose my job where I have like the next 30 years, I know what I'm going to make and it's mapped out and it's safe. And so depending on the position that you're hiring for, sometimes you want an entrepreneur, sometimes you want an employee. Like for like an admin, you don't want an entrepreneur, you want to like have an employee, right? For your sales guys, you potentially might want to have an entrepreneur. But the big thing is like, so every person who comes to your company, they're eventually going to have like visions that potentially might be bigger than what you have to offer. So your job as a visionary or leader is to create the bubble or the vehicle where their vision fits inside your vehicle. So it's your duty to make sure the company is always expanding. So like if your company's like, next year we're gonna stay for $1 million for the next like 10 years, like your employees will be like, I don't want that, but if you're like, hey, next year we're gonna go to 3, then we're gonna 5, then we're going to 10, and you're gonna be a part of that, then their vision can still fit inside of like your vehicle that you're building. So it's your job to kind of continue to expand that vision. And so, but I realized like maybe like some of my guys might grow faster than I can expand the vision. And so I have like a contract with my entrepreneurs that come into my company and say, hey, here's the deal. So I know eventually you're going to take the skills that you learn, you're going to go start your own thing, and you have my full blessing. But before you do, find your replacement and train them. So like if my guy's like, hey, I'm going to go and expand my wings and do my own thing, which you have my full blessing, take whatever systems you learn here. If you just find a replacement for your position and train them before you leave, now there's no drop off. And then like now we're friendly competitors in different spaces, right? But then it's like he lives in Goodwill. We have a replacement who's going to do I'll give the exact same pitch to, like, when you leave, find a replacement and train you. And so like there's no like real like thing that's going to be left. And I just assume that all my entrepreneur employees are eventually going to leave once they can't fit inside my vision. Right. But my vision also is increasing every year too, right? So that's why I need to do bigger deals. I need to make more money. I need to think, because they have to be able to fit inside of my vision.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because like Ryan would be a great example of that. He attracts a lot of that sort of personality and talent.
So I mean, like Brian, like he has his own goals and visions, but then like, so if his vision has to continually fit inside Ryan's vision, so if Ryan's vision just stops right where it is, then Brian's gonna like, screw this, I'm gonna do my own thing. But Ryan's vision is always increasing. Same with Hobby, right? So those guys are entrepreneurs, and I've actually talked to them about this, and they're like, yeah, like if like we can still fit within Ryan's vision, then we're happy. But then once we outgrow Ryan's vision, now that's when they're gonna leave and do their own thing. So,
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That was super helpful. Thank
you.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's super good having you on the show. It's always just a pleasure talking with you. And yeah, thank you. If people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's float it in the comments, because I don't really do much on socials. My business partner though, you can follow him. His Instagram is yoitsfeeki, YOITSFEEKI.
Cool.
And that's where a lot of our projects get posted and things like that. So you can kind of see what the deals we're doing and everything.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks. You got it.